Alright, today we're talking about knife selection and what you should consider when buying a new knife. Let's get going. Alright, the first thing I consider when buying a new knife is what size and style. An 8-inch chef's knife is my go-to for just about every job. There are a few other knives I use when doing smaller things or different tasks, but an 8-inch chef's knife is perfect for chopping, dicing, slicing, and even butchery. Now I would go with a classic style, meaning that the blade is curved. This gives you a nice rocking motion on the cutting board and gives you a very smooth, even cut. The opposite would be a Santoku knife, which would basically be the opposite where the blade is on this side. It's very awkward in my opinion because as you have your knife on the cutting board, until you get the knife all the way flat, you're not really actually cutting anything. On a typical curved chef's knife, the entire way you're getting some form of cutting, and you can also get a nice smooth rocking motion, much simpler. So I would go with the classic style. The next thing to consider is bolster or no bolster. And what I mean by a bolster is this thick piece of metal right here. You can see it's not actually part of the blade, it's just a very thick, hard surface right here that some knives don't have. The purpose of a bolster, or the perks of having a bolster, you have this hard, thick part where you can crack through a bone or anything hard, and even in a pinch, I use it as a can opener. Not safe, don't try it at home, but it does work. A knife without a bolster is blade 100% of the way down. You can see there's nothing thick or different about this blade from one end to the other. The perks of not having a bolster is, as you sharpen the knife, you get a sharp edge 100% of the way. A knife with a bolster, you can't sharpen 100% of the way down because you get to this bolster and you can't sharpen that. So you end up with this little kind of loop that is not going to be flush with the cutting board. So if you're cutting down on a flat surface, you're going to have this little tiny gap there by the bolster that isn't making contact, and therefore you're not getting a good cut. So that's why I prefer a chef's knife without a bolster. And the final major consideration to make is what type of steel. German and Japanese are the two major types of steel. Even if they're not made in Japan or Germany, these are going to be the styles of steel available for most knives. A German style knife is going to be more common across most knife brands. It's a thicker, heavier steel. A Japanese knife is more of a specialty knife. There are a lot of really good manufacturers. This one is a Shun. They're much lighter and thinner steel. Therefore, you can get a sharper edge. I would say straight out of the box, this is probably one of the sharpest knives I've ever used. It is thinner, so you think about the difference between maybe a knife and a razor blade. A razor blade is very, very thin, therefore it can get much sharper. A Japanese style knife is kind of halfway in between a German style and a razor blade. So it is much thinner, it is much lighter. The drawback of that is, though, it is less durable. I've known several people that have owned Shuns over the years, and out of the 4 I can think of off the top of my head, 3 of them snapped the tip of this off pretty quick. They're not made with abuse in mind. A German style knife is going to give you a lot more durability. They're going to withstand a lot more damage. If you drop it, if you whack through a hard bone or something like that, these are going to be a lot more durable. They are also going to hold an edge longer because they're a thicker, heavier duty steel. They may not get quite as sharp as these, but they still get very, very sharp, and they will hold that edge much longer. The edge on this is going to wear down much quicker because it's so thin. You can sharpen it and get it much sharper than this one most likely, but you're going to be sharpening it much more frequently. The actual upkeep is something you consider as well when choosing a knife style. Throughout my career, I've been pretty loyal to Wusthof. If anybody ever asks what kind of knife they should get, or if they're looking to get some new knives, I've always suggested Wusthof if they could afford them. They are a very high quality knife. I've used them for nearly 20 years now, almost exclusively, and have been nothing but satisfied with them. The only issue I've ever had is I tend to crack or break the handle. It's some sort of a plastic. That being said, I'm probably much more abusive to my knives than most people. Being in the hustle and bustle of a commercial kitchen, you're gonna give your knives a lot more abuse than you probably would in the home kitchen, so I wouldn't really worry about that. I've never broken the tip or blade on a Wusthof knife. I have cracked the handles on probably 7 out of 10 of the ones I've owned, so keep that in mind. Like I said, Many people I've known that have had Japanese style knives have actually broken, you know, a good chunk of the tip off, if not snap the knife in half. That's not probably gonna happen to you at home again, because you're not gonna abuse your knives the same way a chef or a cook in a commercial kitchen would, but definitely something to keep in mind. These take a lot less upkeep. The blade will stay sharp much longer. These will get much sharper, but are a lot less durable and will wear down quicker. Now, these are two professional quality high-end knives. Obviously, not everybody can afford knives like these. These are about $130-ish and $150. Very expensive. I do look at that as an investment though. It's not something that you're gonna buy a new knife every year. Most likely it's something you're gonna buy for 5, 10, 20 years, if not more, for the average person. So you're gonna get what you pay for. If you don't invest a little bit in the beginning, they're likely not gonna be as durable and long lasting. That being said, if you can't afford that kind of investment in a knife, I would make sure that whichever style you go with, that it has a full tang, meaning that, see how the steel runs all the way down from one end to the other? If you buy a lot of cheaper knives, they will have a plastic handle that is completely, that you can't see the tang in, which actually on this Shun you can't. This does run the length of the knife because it is a very high quality knife. But most of the knives that come like this, where you cannot see the tang run all the way down, will likely just have a little bit of metal that goes down, you know, maybe an inch or two past what you can see, and that's it. And the blade can actually become detached from the knife handle. You don't want that, obviously. That's not only gonna make you very sad, but it's also a bit of a safety hazard as well. So make sure if you are buying a lower quality knife, that at the very least it has a tang that runs the full length of the knife. And be sure to decide whether you want a bolster or not, and if you want a German style, whether it's actually from Germany or not, or a Japanese style. I hope you found this video useful and will help you make a more educated decision going forward. I'll drop links in the description for both of these. These are my two #1 picks for either style. They are a little more expensive, but like I said, it is an investment. It is something that'll be long lasting, and they make great gifts. Most people are scared to invest that kind of money in a knife, so sometimes it's better to give it as a gift, and then that way they don't have to feel guilty about spending this kind of money on a knife. But these are very high quality, will get the job done, will last you most likely a lifetime for the average person. So if you'd like me to make any other kind of videos like this, pros and cons of different brands or equipment, or, you know, side-by-side comparisons, and we'll make that in the future.